It's the Underdogs. Hey, everybody, it's Jordan Brenner here with you, joined as always by my co-host, the amazing, the wonderful, the handsome Peter Keating. Happy October, Peter.
Hey, Jordan, how's it going? Jordan, do you love this time of year as much as I do because you can release all of your nervous energy that you've had week to week about your fantasy baseball team, but still love your players because now they're in the playoffs and the games matter to them, but not to us. You know what I mean? It's like I can finally breathe out after 6 months, but then I got to get all jacked up again for football. So,
I can't say I've ever stressed that much about fantasy baseball, but I am
really
a little bit stressed about our underdog picks. I need a good week this week, and we're going to get into that later. Plus, I hear you've got a little bit of a checkmate situation going on.
Well, let's hope it's not a stalemate, Jordan.
Yeah, at the end of the show. But first, at the end of this week, we're going to be more than a quarter of the way through the NFL season. So we thought it's a great time to take stock of early underdog stories and whether we're buying or selling them going forward. So I think by far, Peter, the best underdog story in the NFL through the first 4 weeks of the seasons has been Rams rookie wide receiver Puka Nacua. The guy,
the underdog MVP, right, of this year so far, clearly, right?
Absolutely. I don't think anyone saw this coming. We didn't when we did our rookie receiver deep sleeper segment. It's a 5th round pick. Obviously, he stepped into a role he wasn't expected to have when Cooper Kupp went down with an injury, but I don't think anyone expected him to look like Cooper Kupp because those are the numbers he's been producing through the first 4 weeks.
4 weeks, he's 39 receptions, 52 targets, right? Over 500 yards. Look, the league didn't expect this. He was the 20th receiver drafted, right? He went in the 5th round. Every team in the league had 4 shots at least to get this guy, and he's been amazing.
There are 2 cool aspects to this. One is it's been written about in a few places now, but Matthew Stafford's continued ability to elevate receivers, whether it was a Kenny Golladay in Detroit or a Marvin Jones. Obviously Calvin Johnson was Calvin Johnson, but Cooper Kupp's metrics took a big step up when Stafford got to the Rams and so forth. So this is the latest project, and it makes you wonder kind of how much is the receiver himself, how much is it just playing with a great quarterback? So that's, do you have any thoughts on the Stafford part of this mix?
Well, clearly it's partly Stafford, and I mean, and good for him, right? I mean, Stafford has done this before, as you pointed out. I think we're on to it a little bit now. Maybe we weren't with Golladay, but Jordan, I do have to say, I mean, just looking at any players, rookies or otherwise, targeted more than 30 times in the first 2 games of a season, you got to go back. I mean, the way Nacua is playing, it's a throwback to the days where teams didn't throw as often, but threw a lot to their 1-star receiver, right? So you could amass targets. The guys with 30 targets in the first 2 weeks of the seasons are guys like Isaac Bruce, Herman Moore, Jordy Nelson, who I know you're a fan of,
awesome.
Randy Moss. I mean, these Andre Rison. I mean, you got to go back to the 2000s and the 1990s to find teams throwing to one player this much to start the season. So yes, it's partly Stafford. Yes, it's partly the way he's being used. He's running those shorter routes.
Well, right. His ADOT is very low. So he is a volume hog, right? He's running around on more than 90% of pass plays. His targets per route run are well north of 30%. That's why I don't think this is sustainable when Cooper Kupp comes back, because it's Puka Nacua only has 1 red zone target, I believe. He's not building his fantasy resume on touchdowns. It's volume. So there's no question that when Kupp is back, he'll still be the alpha. So I would think if I own Puka Nacua in fantasy right now, I'd be looking to sell high at this point. You agree?
But Jordan, do you think he's going to take catches away from Tutu Atwell? I mean, Tutu Atwell has played very well. Now, yes, at an average route that's deeper than the ones Nacua has been running, but Tutu Atwell came out 119 yards in the first game on 6 catches. Everybody said he was going to be the deep threat. That number's come way down. I mean, and he's done very well with Nacua in the lineup. Nakua's done fantastic with Atwell in the lineup. I think Nacua keeps a lot of value with Kupp in the lineup. He's been Stafford's first read on like 40%
That's why I don't see that continuing.
So that has to come down. And one other thing that worries me is he has a 75% catch rate, which is very hard to sustain if you are going to go a little deeper. But okay, so he's going to be the number 2 receiver on a team that's going to throw the ball a lot, because Stafford throws a lot. Stafford's capable of throwing anywhere. The offensive line is terrible. He's always chucking the ball, right? And they're going to be behind a lot. I mean, yes, right. You play alongside Cooper Kupp.
No, he'll be relevant, but he's not a top 10 receiver.
No, he's had 125 yards a game through the first month of the season. That is not sustainable.
Speaking of relevant, underdog story number 2. Let's go to the AFC South. Regular listeners of the show might recall that we like to do right after the NFL draft an early look at NFL futures and over-unders. And your team at the time was the Colts. My team at the time was the Texans to go over. And wouldn't you know it, both are 2-2 in the wild and wacky AFC South. What do we make of this? Are either the Texans or the Colts live underdogs and maybe even a threat to challenge for the division?
Oh, I hate to say I told you so. Wait a minute. No, I don't. I love to say I told you so. Jordan, we told everybody. I told you, you told me, we told you so. These two teams were coming off seasons where they were destroyed by injuries, where they had bad luck. They were coming into easier schedules. If you thought Jacksonville wasn't going to go, 14-3, there were wins to be had in this division, and they've had them. And I'll tell you something else. Both Indy and Houston have played much tougher opposition so far than Jacksonville and Tennessee. Jacksonville and Tennessee are not just disappointing in that they're 2-2. They're disappointing relative to who they have played, right? I mean, Indianapolis has already beaten Houston, the other 2-2 team, and the Ravens, right? So I really now could somebody have banked another win there? Yes, against the Rams, yes. But I kind of like where both of these teams are sitting because I don't think anyone's running away with this division. Doesn't this division feel like two teams that could go 9-8 and two teams that could go 8-9?
Certainly possible. The schedules again aren't too difficult. Look, we talked at the time, right? I like the Texans because I thought the passing offense couldn't be worse than it was under Davis Mills. Well, CJ Stroud has been even better than I anticipated. And he's made Tank Dell and Nico Collins into fantasy relevant wide receivers. They're fun. They're fun to watch. They're actually building something. And if you look at their upcoming schedule, okay, they're at the Falcons, winnable, home against the Saints, winnable, at the Panthers, then versus the Buccaneers. Yeah, that's 4 NFC South teams in a row. They've got the Cardinals later, the Broncos at home. There are winnable games. We took them over 5.5. The line actually moved up to 6.5 by the end of the summer. But Peter, it's at the point now where I think you at least have to start looking at division winning odds and seeing if there's value there.
Yes, and I'll tell you, let me just slip in one other fact before we get to those numbers. I loved Anthony Richardson, not just because of the big arm, not just because of the potential, but because his college numbers revealed that he was mobile enough to avoid sacks under pressure. And that is really important for a rapidly improving team. And he's doing that. And again, like you said, with Stafford, that's what Stroud is doing. Stroud is elevating players around him a lot faster than Bryce Young seems to be, a lot faster than Daniel Jones or anyone else I can name off the top of my head for a disappointing team seems to be. These are the kind of things that can take a bad team, make them good really quick. If one unit improves so fast that teams can no longer just beat you by just showing up, right? If young players are improving fast and if your quarterback turn out to be good.
Right. The odds real quick, you can get the Colts at plus 380 and the Texans at plus 475 to win the AFC South. I don't think either would be the craziest bet in the world. I would still lean toward my Houston Texans. Third underdog story, and let's hit this one quickly. A lot of the top of the NFL, it was hard kind of finding teams that have really surprised with a great start. It's a lot of who we thought they'd be, right? The Niners, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Bills, the Chiefs. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are sitting at 3-1 and are looking a bit sprightly, especially Baker Mayfield, who's a great underdog story, basically given up on at a couple of stops. Looks like he has control of that Tampa offense. They're 14th in EPA per play. That's despite ranking only 26th in rushing EPA per play. So he's got their passing game going despite a lack of balance. They're 3-1. Sustainable or not sustainable?
Lean, maybe surprising myself, towards the sustainable side. Mayfield's adjusted net yards per attempt, which includes sacks and interceptions. It's 13% above league average. He's only taken 4 sacks. Jordan, last year when he was with the Rams, he was sacked on 11.6% of his dropbacks. It's been a problem throughout his entire career, almost 7% for his career. This year, it's down to 3.1. That has to do with the line. Also has to do with him committing to finally trying to avoid sacks, supposing to chuck the ball. Both of those things are really important. When your quarterback improves for real, that's as sustainable to me, especially with a team as receivers as good as this. Who the hell needs balance? I mean, they need some fantastic running game to go ahead to go along with that substantial improvement in their quarterback play. He's playing better than Brady did last year. And, a lot of small things eroded around the edges for Brady last year in his final season, including his ability to sneak for first downs. Mayfield's actually, this is not a big part of his game, it's actually getting
on a quarterback sneak.
Well, a lot of Tampa's short yardage success the year before last was based on Brady being able to pick up a first down whenever he wanted. He couldn't do that as well last year. It's one of the tiny things that Baker Mayfield is doing better this year. But most of all, he's not taking the big sacks and he's connecting with the receivers. And I think that's enough to show a substantial improvement. So I'd say sustainable.
Well, and the other piece of it, again, is like we talked about with the AFC South, that division is weak. We said it was going to be weak going in. The Panthers actually, I thought they would be a little bit frisky, but they're 0-4. I think we called some of the Saints hype overrated, and I think we were right about that. Atlanta cannot throw the ball at all. I mean, I don't know what they think they see in Desmond Ridder, but they have some offensive weapons, and right now it's being completely compromised by the fact that he can't do anything. So sure, I mean, why can't Tampa win this division? Their defense has been solid, only giving up 17 points a game. In Baker, we trust, right?
So far, so good. And he is a great story. I mean, dumped and replaced by Deshaun Watson, for a team that thought it was going to have a stopgap year to get to the next draft. Long term, we'll see if that works out, because maybe it's Atlanta having that unintentional stopgap year, right? Where they've upgraded everywhere and are playing so badly still that they might get Caleb Williams. If they fall into that, what can you do? I mean, Tampa's done a pretty good job here.
Right. Well, I don't want to get into the true ultimate underdog of the NFL. That would be the Giants offensive line. But maybe we'll get into them in the next segment when we make our underdog picks.
Yeah, I have a feeling we won't, because there's underdogs and then there's teams that just suck. But, let's see what you got.
All right, we're back with week 5 of the Underdogs contest. It was a good bounce back week for 2 of us. That would be you, Peter, and you, Sarah. You managed to get the Jets to cover in the Taylor Swift game for a point. Peter, you had the Texans +3 against the Steelers. They won outright, giving you 2 more points. All I could manage was a lowly half a point as the Bears pushed with the Broncos. So that brings the season standings to Peter in first place with 7.5 points. In second place, Sarah and assorted guests with 7 points. And last, and yes, definitely least, me with 4.5 points. But I do have the first pick this week.
Wait, may I ask a fact-related question? Please. Jordan, now that you picked a team that pushed,
yes,
you're now claiming the half point.
Oh, yeah, I said it should be a half point all
along. I believe Sarah and I remember your long-winded diatribes about how in Vegas or whatever the hell you were saying, you can only win or lose. Why should my push be worth half a point? But now you're gobbling it up.
Yeah, Sarah would never insert a clip of me saying anything negative about a push into the show. She wouldn't do that. So, yes, as always, we're joined by our producer, Sarah McCrory, the best in the business, and she will be
the best at picking underdogs. She pretends she knows nothing and then crushes us every week. Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's roll.
I'm just hustling you guys.
So this week's order: I'm first, Peter second, Sarah has the 3-4, back to Peter, and then me. You guys good? As always, we'll be going with DraftKings lines. So I will start with the first pick of the week 5 underdogs draft. I will take the Pittsburgh Steelers +4 at home against Baltimore. This is the quintessential Mike Tomlin spot. They are in his career. He is 16-5-3 against the spread as a home underdog. That's an even better percentage when he's going against a division rival. Look, the Steelers aren't playing great, and despite that, they've actually ranked as the luckiest team in the NFL on the Action Network's luck rankings. So There aren't a lot of analytic reasons to love the Steelers, but I do like getting more than a field goal at home for a guy who has proven time and again, he gets his team to respond as an underdog. So give me the Steelers +4.
I can only disagree with that pick for one reason, and his initials are MVP. That's right, Lamar Jackson. That's all I'm going to say.
Great. All right, you're up, Peter.
We have a plethora of horrendous teams to choose from this week, and I'm going with the team that I believe may be the worst in the league. That's right. Give me Carolina +9.5 against Detroit. There's two things going on here. One is that winless teams generally don't stay winless. What a great argument, right? But road underdogs who haven't won yet in weeks 3 through 6 win again against the spread, at least cover at a rate of 60%. The other thing is Carolina has been really unlucky. In the early going, they've recovered only 2 of the 7 fumbles that have occurred in their games. One of them last week was returned for a game-winning touchdown against Minnesota. So I do think nowhere to go but up. I'm not going to go into the merits of Carolina's offensive line or anything like that, although I do think they're getting players back pretty soon. I don't know if in time for this game. That's a big, big spread for a team that's been unlucky.
Yeah, no, and I hate to give you credit, but this was my second choice as well. Adding to the unluckiness, the Action Network does these luck rankings, and when there's a spread of at least 24 places, they say between lucky and unlucky. Those unlucky teams this year are 7-4-2 against the spread. Overall, since they started studying it in 2018, they win at a 63.5% clip, and you've got that this week. The Panthers are 29th in luck. The Lions are 5th.
And that doesn't always happen. There were no extremely lucky versus extremely unlucky teams facing each other last week, but this is the matchup in that category this time. Yeah.
All right, Sarah, you got 2 picks in a row. And you can
I got 2 in a row. Right, forgot.
And
right.
we'll see if we tempt you with the Giants. So let's go.
Okay, well, I'm not going to talk about the Giants yet, but as much as this pains me as a Giants fan, I'm going to take the Cowboys +3.5 at the 49ers. I think that's going to be a really good game to watch, and I'm excited about it. And unfortunately, I do think the Cowboys could do it.
All right, Cowboys on the road getting 3.5. That hook is key. The half a point is key.
I tell you, the other thing that's key is that I love Sarah always picks games that are going to be entertaining. Love how Sarah's criteria includes fun to watch. I think that actually matters. I hate picking teams that I can't stand looking at. So excellent.
Well, I can't stand looking at the Cowboys regardless.
Well, yeah, but
okay.
All right, pick number 4.
Get mauled by
okay, I'm gonna make things interesting. I'm gonna be predictable. I'm gonna take the Giants +11 at Miami. And why? Because I've never been so embarrassed to be a Giants fan. Why not keep it going? And because I think that it truly cannot get any worse. I'm gonna regret saying this, but I don't think it can get any worse. I think Brian Daboll has screamed at Daniel Jones and that offensive line, and I think they're gonna have to get it together. And it could be really brutal against Miami, but yeah, I'm gonna take my Giants +11.
My problem is I think that it lost in the futility of the offensive line and their inability to score points is the defense isn't any good either. And I could see the Dolphins putting up 50 on them. I think the Giants will score this week. I just don't know how they stop the Dolphins. But I will be rooting with you because I'm a glutton for punishment. All right, Peter, pick number 5.
Regression to the mean implies some kind of elasticity, right? Like the rubber band snaps back.
No. Oh, don't do this.
Just going to say, what if the rubber band breaks? That's the problem we face in evaluating these teams, right? I
know where you're going.
When you fall through the floor, there is no bounce back because you can't get back up through what is now your ceiling. Despite that, I'm going to go with a team like Carolina that has looked, if anything, worse than the Giants. Again, using the principle that a winless team is likely to bounce back by week 6. I'm going to take the Bears +6 against the Commanders. I don't believe in the Commanders yet. I like Brian Robinson. I do not know. I don't talk about sustainable with these quarterbacks and what's happening. I don't know if what Sam Howell is doing is sustainable. And again, This is an unlucky team versus a lucky team. Maybe not at the extreme lengths of Carolina and Detroit. But again, winless teams usually bounce back by week 6. And I would have actually taken the Giants, put my whole season on the line, because if they get wiped out in Miami, I don't know what's worth watching the rest of this year for us as Giants fans. But they're gone. Give me the Bears. It's now or never.
Are you just saying that to make you feel better, or were you actually going to choose the?
No, I would have gone for the huge. And by the way, somebody's got to do the what the hell happened to Chase Claypool's story. But we can finally stop talking about his catch rate because he's gone, just gone, sent away, shipped away by Chicago. We don't have to talk about him dropping the ball anymore.
That was quite a trade.
Yeah,
first
good work.
Yeah.
Good work.
Well, I thought you were going another direction, and I'm pleasantly surprised you didn't. When you're talking about elasticity and teams having a very different profile than a year ago, I thought you were talking about the Minnesota Vikings, who were far and away the luckiest team in the NFL last year, but now they're 31st in luck. So it is rebounded and then some. They're better than their 1-3 record, and they're getting 5 points at home against the Chiefs. I will take the Vikings. This game has back and forth shootout written all over it. The Chiefs defense just managed to make Zach Wilson look like an NFL quarterback. I think the Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson passing attack will be productive all day. I could see this being one of those games that Mahomes leads a drive late for a field goal to win, but I'm getting 5 at home. I'm excited about this. Give me the Vikings +5 against the Chiefs. You have any issues with that, guys?
I think you're right about, now that regression to the mean has made it into popular analysis, like Al Michaels is talking about on national television, people are taking it too far. They think if Minnesota won more games than they should have last year, that means they're going to win a lot less this year. That's not how it works. If you get 8 heads in a row, that doesn't mean you're going to get a lot more tails coming up. So I agree with you. Minnesota is better than they've looked, but Jordan, Kansas City's pretty damn good as a favorite under Mahomes and Kirk Cousins. What was the heralded combination you just talked about? The Cousins, Jefferson, Hawkinson trio put up a big 14 offensive points against Carolina last week. There's something going on. They need to fix it. I don't know that they fix it against the Super Bowl champions. That's all I can say.
We'll see when I'm in first place after this week. But before we wrap up,
wait, is it mathematically possible for you to get enough points to be in first place to catch Sarah or me?
Stop making me stick to things like facts and numbers. Okay, we go,
Sarah, we should have a side bet on what week Jordan will be mathematically eliminated from the Underdogs contest.
Before we go, and I try to wrap the segment on time, Peter wants to say something about chess. All right, Peter.
I do. Starting tomorrow, starting this weekend, going through the next 2 weeks, the U.S. Chess Championships are taking place at the St. Louis Chess Club, which has become, thanks to the patronage of its interesting billionaire owner and sponsor, the centerpiece, the showcase, the land where all of chess is focused in this country now. Now, look, chess among men is still largely like if you see in the Queen's Gambit. There's a lot of ex-Soviet emigres sitting around smoking in the clubhouse. But there's an entire generation of new players that has grown up in the last 20 years. A lot of people, you may be familiar a little bit with Garry Kasparov. If you're not, check out his Twitter account. It's fantastic, and it's a lot more than chess on there because he hates Putin. It's an interesting situation. So there are new players coming up, and there's different styles and strategies, but it's on the women's side where there's a great underdog story. Her name is Jenny Yu. She's a junior at Harvard. She won last year, but she is exactly what we look for as a high risk, high reward, high variance underdog with championship potential. Last year, she finished in a tie for first place in this tournament. There's then a 2-game blitz playoff. Each player won 1 game, so there's an Armageddon game. She lost a piece on the 9th move, but stuck around long enough to win through sheer energy, determination, and a real gambling style of play. She has said she likes to create messes. She's exactly the kind of person athlete who could be a champion and underdog at the same time. So over the next couple of weeks, watch for the coverage. You can find betting lines, but they're kind of betting lines in chess are often on the sensationalistic side. Like there was a guy suspected of cheating. So you can find odds about whether he will be caught cheating during the chess championship more easily than you can find odds to bet on the players. But Jenny Yu is the one to watch on the women's side. She's chaotic, and she's grown up in an era where you can't hope to beat computers by outthinking them or out memorizing them. So she throws a lot of risk at them and against her human opponents too. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Well, if you want to hear more about chess, Peter will be hosting a fireside chat at his home. Please DM him on Twitter for his address.
I'm available for correspondence games at any time. All you have to do is get in touch.